Let your shoulders drop. Let the rush of the holiday preparedness just melt away. You have arrived. You're here in this sacred space with all this beautiful community, surrounded by people who see the light in you. We're on our final step of Advent. It's a beautiful walk. We ignited the flame of faith the first week. We stood in the vibration of peace the second week. Last week we immersed ourselves in love, and today we arrive at the culmination of all those qualities. Today we awaken joy. Now I want to be very clear about something right from the start. Spiritual joy is not the same as happiness. And I'm going to light our pink candle, which is our joy candle. Happiness is what happens when something goes right. You know, you find a great parking spot, your team wins the game, you get good cards when you play bridge, the sun is shining, there's door prizes. Yes. That's wonderful, but it's temporary. Happiness is like the weather. You know, it changes when the way the wind blows changes. Spiritual joy is different. Spiritual joy is a spiritual power. It's a divine idea. It's an inherent quality of God. And we talk about our 12 powers, and I really wish that December was zeal, because I believe that the power of zeal is really the power of joy, the culmination. And it's what happens when you fully realize the truth of who you are. It's when the faith, the love, and the peace that we've talked about come together and they culminate in your heart and they combust into joy. French philosopher, scientist, and monk Pierre Teilhard de Chardin gave us a measuring tool for how spiritual we are. He said, joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. So when you're not joyful, you can kind of bet God's there and you hadn't tuned in. Joy is that sign that we've plugged in, that we've cleared the static, and that we're getting that message of spirit, the signal of spirit really clear. If happiness is the waves on the surface of the ocean, joy is that deep, crushing stillness of the water miles down. It is unruffled by any of the storms above. And so today I'm going to share 4 ways that we can awaken this power of joy in our lives, not just on Sunday, but every day. And if you didn't get it, there's a handout for you to take home so that you can remember this next week. The first thing is that joy is an inside job. The first truth that we really have to embrace is that joy is not something we pursue, it's something that we reveal, that we uncover. We often say, I'll be joyful when, the bills get paid, the holidays are over, the house is clean. But that's putting our spiritual power of joy into some outside event. That means we're trying to outsource our joy. Now, do we really want to do that? No. Our master teacher Jesus in John said, I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. Notice the location. Where is the joy? In you. The joy of the divine, the Christ consciousness is already installed in your operating system. You got it. It comes from spirit. There's a profound scene in the movie The Shawshank Redemption, and it perfectly illustrates this. There's a prisoner, Andy, who's the main character, and he's surrounded by gray walls and hopelessness. One day he locks himself in the warden's office, and he plays a Mozart opera over the loudspeaker. And for a minute, the prison stops, and everybody is touched, and the grayness is kind of dissolved, and they're just it's unusual, and everybody in there was just touched by the music. Well, of course, he gets thrown into the hole, into solitary confinement for 2 weeks, and when he gets out, his friends expect for him to be broken. But when he gets out, he says, no. He says, it's in here and in here. The music is in my head. It's in my heart. That's the beauty of music. That's the beauty of the light of Spirit in you. He says, they can't take it from you. Haven't you ever felt that way about music? His friend says, well, I played the harmonica once, but I lost interest in it. It just didn't make much sense to play the harmonica in here. And Andy replies, here's where it makes the most sense. You need it so you don't forget that there are places in the world that are not made of stone, that there is something inside that they can't touch. That's spiritual joy. It's the Mozart in your heart. It's the realization that the world can take away your comfort and your freedom. This morning when we were coming here down US 1, we got close to Pineda, and they were turning us around. They took away my comfort. Thank goodness Julie was with me. I couldn't figure out how I was going to get here. I mean, was I going to go up to 95 to 520? I might not get here in time for the service. And she said, well, we can just go up Wickham and turn on Suntree Boulevard. It was easy. It couldn't take my light. It couldn't take Julie's light. When you realize that the kingdom of God is within you, you have a source of joy that the world did not give you, and therefore the world can't take it away. The second thing, if joy is our light, gratitude is the switch that turns it on. We can't experience joy when we are focused on what is missing. The human mind is often wired to look for the crack in the wall, to look for the flaw, to look for what's wrong. But to awaken joy, you and I have to just look for what's good. Notice it and be aware. Unity's co-founder, Charles Fillmore, said, joy is the happiness of God expressed through man. There is a capacity for joy in every soul, and it can be developed by right words and thoughts. Joy is developed. It's a practice, and the practice is finding the good right where you are. I remember reading about a story about a power outage, and I think it was in New York. It was during the really big heat wave, and it was very hot, and the power went out. And in this apartment building, the elevator stopped, the air conditioner was off, the internet was down. In one apartment building, a woman named Sarah decided she wasn't going to sit in the dark and complain. She had a freezer full of ice cream that was going to melt. So she took her flashlight and went and knocked on her neighbor's door and says, I have some ice cream. Do you want to eat some? And he had a guitar. And the next neighbor had a gas grill. And someone else had candles. They ended up having a candlelit party on the front stoop. People who had been strangers for years were suddenly sharing stories, eating melting mint chocolate chip ice cream, and singing songs. The circumstance didn't change. There still wasn't any electricity. But the experience changed because of a change in perspective. When Sarah shifted from look at what I lost to look at what we can share, the shift is where joy lives. Third thing, joy is found in service. We often think that joy comes from getting things, but the spiritual law of circulation says that we have to give in order to receive. The Dead Sea is dead because it takes water in, but it never lets any water out. True spiritual joy is the feeling of life flowing through us to bless someone else. The poet, and John, say his name. Rabindranath Tagore wrote, I slept and dreamed that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. There was a man waiting for a cab at an airport, and he was waiting there, and the cabs were kind of dirty looking, and the cab drivers were grumpy and looked tired. And when it was his turn, all of a sudden there was this spotless taxi there. And the driver jumped out, and he handed the man a card, and the card said, Wally's mission statement: to get my customers to their destination in the quickest, safest, cheapest way, in friendly environment. And the passenger was stunned, and he got in, and the cab was inside was immaculate. And Wally offered him a bottle of water, and he asked him if there was something he'd like to hear on the radio. And the man said, Wally, have you always driven a cab like this? And Wally laughed and said, no, for years I was a duck. I just quacked and complained. I quacked and complained about the traffic, the weather, and the tips. I was miserable. And then I decided to become an eagle. Ducks quack and complain. Eagles soar above the crowd. Wally decided to turn his taxi into a 5-star experience. He stopped focusing on the transaction and started focusing on service. And his income doubled, but more importantly, his joy returned. You and I all drive taxis of some form, whether it's our job, our homes, our interactions. When we stop quacking about the traffic and start serving with love, we tap into the joy of being an eagle. I'm going to embarrass someone right now. I drove here today with my friend Julie, who helped me get here. And Julie is one of those people who is always quietly in service. If you go on any of the outings with Sierra Club, it's Julie that coordinates them. And she is the person that's in charge of their political efforts. She's in service. And I can tell you that having her as a friend is a real joy. Fourth, joy is the awareness of oneness. And we're preparing to celebrate the birth of Christ. But in a metaphysical tradition, we understand it is not about that baby born 2,000 years ago in a stable. It is about the Christ consciousness being born in you in any moment, in every moment that you want it to be there. It's about the birth of the Christ consciousness within you and within me. It's the moment when our human mind realizes, I am not just this body. I'm not my problems. I am a spark of the divine. You are a spark of the divine. Will you say that with me? I am a spark of the divine. Let's do that again. I am a spark of the divine. When that realization is born within us, the inevitable byproduct is joy. Why? Because you realize that in the chaos of the world, that chaos cannot extinguish who you really are. You realize you are safe. You realize that you are loved. You realize that the universe is supporting you, that you are eternal. That realization is joy. The deepest level of joy comes from this realization of oneness. And the candles that we're going to light represents Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness in you and the Christ consciousness in me. That is the awareness that we are not separate, isolated beings. As we pass the light from one to the other, we're doing it together because we're all one. You and I are individual expressions of the one life. And when we really get it, pressures fall away. We realize that we're supported by the universe. Astronauts who go into space often report a cognitive shift. And that shift's called the overview effect. When they see Earth from space, a tiny blue marble, a fragile marble in the vast darkness, they don't see borders. They don't see politics. They don't see conflict. They see one living, breathing organism. And many come back having had tears. They're filled with a cosmic sense of joy. Why? Because they saw the truth. They saw that we are all in this together. They saw the unity of all life. And you and I don't have to go to the moon to have that experience. We can have that experience in the midst of a meditation. We can have it when we look into the eyes of a child. We can have it when we look in the eyes of one of our loved ones. And even when we look in the eyes of a stranger and we realize that the spirit in me is the same as the spirit in you. When we drop the armor of separation, joy rushes in. So after my talk and after sacred exchange and our healing prayers, we will have a time of meditation and candle lighting. And as we light our candles, we are not just lighting wax and wick. We are symbolically saying, I am awake. As we pass the light, we're saying, I am a light, and I share my light with you. So as you prepare for Christmas, remember Andy in Shawshank. Joy expands. Joy is an inside job. Keep your music playing. Remember the ice cream. Joy expands when we are grateful for what's right in front of us. Remember Wally the taxi driver. Joy is found in serving others. Be an eagle. And remember the astronauts. Joy is the truth of our oneness. Our friend, our late Reverend Paul Hasselbeck, said you can experience joy even when you aren't happy about a specific situation. Even if you don't like what you see on TV, you can still experience joy. Together, we are awakening to the Christ consciousness, the joy that was in Jesus and the joy that is in you and me. God bless you all.